square one. So if you ever do, or if you have applied for a disability living allowance, the key thing is keep a copy of the form, because otherwise in 2 years' time you'll have to start from scratch. So if you've got the form there, just dig it out in 2 years' time, and then obviously you're going to need updating. But having that, keeping a copy is absolutely vital. Also, you may be entitled now to blue badge parking. I know that we've got it for both George and Harry. Got it easily for George, but had to actually appeal for Harry. And also there's a provision for bus passes, again, is something else that you can apply for. There are numerous resources available. Obviously, Tree of Hope is a good example, but there's also other websites. The IPSA, that's IPSEA website, is a really useful resource. It's got templates on it, a lot of clear guidance, and that's well, one of your first ports of call. Also, the Special Needs Jungle website and Facebook or social media pages, again, written by a lot of people that know their stuff. Tons of useful information, a bit more of a commentary, so it can get a little bit political. And then there is the National Autistic Society website, and they've got, again, useful information. And also social media. There are so many social media groups. Now, that is one of the problems with setting my observations, is there are too many groups. We're very fractured, and we're up against large organizations, and if we could sort of join together, we would become a much more powerful force. But on social media, if you haven't explored that, you'll find there's these groups, and there are other parents in similar situations to you, and a lot of the tiger mums know exactly what they're doing, and they've got a lot of useful ideas. And obviously you can ask for help and say, this is a situation I've got. Have I, is this diagnosis right, do you think? Well, so don't be frightened of putting your comments on that. There's also the Sendias, which is, again, I'm a little bit wary of them. They are funded by local authorities, so take them with a pinch of salt. But they are there as a resource to support parents, but they are funded by local authorities, so make of that what you will. And if you get completely stuck, just obviously use Google or Yahoo and do an internet search and type in what you're worried about, and I'm sure somebody will come up with an answer, or you'll find some resources. But again, just take a balanced view, look at everything, and then form a view. I'm just going to now talk a little bit about impact of COVID-19 and the coronavirus. So the schools, as we all know, suddenly were closed on the 20th of March without an awful lot of warning. It was all rather sudden. But children with special educational needs and those with EHCPs still had the opportunity, if needed, of attending a placement. I don't have enough information about how that worked. I did speak to one school teacher of a special needs school, so they were taking pupils from other schools. I don't know exactly how much tuition they got and how it was run, but there was that opportunity once the lockdown started. Then the other big significance, I suppose, of the coronavirus was the service by the Secretary of State, Secretary of Education, his notices issued on the 30th of April 2020, whereby he modified the requirements of Section 42 of the Children and Families Act. This had a major impact upon the SEND at the time in two ways. One is that local authorities only had to use reasonable endeavours when making provision. So in effect, it just watered down their statutory requirements. And secondly, the timetable requirements were relaxed. But it's important to stress that it was only 4 steps taken after the 1st of May 2020. So everything up to the 30th of April should have been as before. So any annual reviews due before the 30th of April should have been done. So they cannot or shouldn't use the coronavirus as an excuse. Everything technically regarding special educational needs and disabilities under the Children and Families Act should return to normal. I use that word loosely, by the 25th of September 2020. But I suppose if we go, or there's a thought or fear rather of a second lockdown, then that could lead to the Secretary for Education issuing a second notice, a further notice extending that time. But in reality, or hopefully, things should be back to some sort of normality by the 25th of September. Also, the big sort of story now from Boris Johnson is we've got this moral duty for all children to go back to school in September. Big statement, but has that been really thought through? Don't think so. And how is it also going to impact on parents and children with special educational needs? There's obviously been a huge gap since children were last in school in most cases. How's that going to impact on the child? Is it going to increase their anxieties? What will exactly the effect be? What adjustments have the local authorities made in the schools to facilitate this return? Again, have they just been paying lip service to it? Are we going to be in a situation in schools with social distancing, bubbles, and are they providing PPE equipment? And also, will this actually increase the anxiety and the masking that a lot of children will be doing? They will no doubt be fearful and worried, and goodness knows how they react. I'm not quite sure if there's going to be a phased return to school. How is that going to work? Are the classrooms going to be the same sizes? Are children going to be in school the whole time? And then, of course, getting kids to school is another big issue. The special needs school near where I live, one of the things I noticed was, before the lockdown, was all the minibuses used to turn up, cram full of kids, and then presumably that now is all going to change. I can't see that you can do that. And just one interesting thing I noticed last night, that the demand for bus passes in Kent is apparently, for school bus passes, is down by 75%. So presumably parents are going to be bringing their children to school, which is obviously going to cause travel chaos for us all in September. But that may be because, I'm not sure if it's because they're fearful of the children getting viruses or the virus on public transport, or whether it's because they're working from home. Another thing, again, I don't know if people have asked the schools whether there is any sort of transitional planning. What is it? How is it going to look like? Again, I've got no feel for whether schools are working with parents, simply because my children aren't in school. So I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what risk assessments are being undertaken. And then leading on from that, will the teaching assistants that were there before, will they still be there, or are they going to be redeployed? Again, how are the schools going to cope about staff absences? Because no doubt there will be many. A lot of staff will have to go into self-isolation if they start exhibiting symptoms of the virus. So again, how is that all going to play? One thing, again, regarding since the lockdown, again, I don't know whether any treatments or therapies have been provided remotely or otherwise. I certainly, from my own personal experience, there has been none. And then again, elective home education. Are parents now going to seriously consider this as a realistic option rather than children going back to school? So that there are so many questions. Unfortunately, nobody knows the answer. And then one other thing I've just put in my note is there could be local lockdowns. And again, how is that going to impact education? So there's also, one other thing I've put here about what if, school insists that children are dropped off at the school gates. In some instances, as we all know, the kids need their parents to accompany them into the school. So will that then increase anxieties or be in some way considered discriminatory? But who knows? So but just to emphasize, this moral duty, and what is important to stress is that unless there are medical reasons, effectively, attendance in school from September is going to be compulsory. So that could lead to situations where the local authority threatening prosecution, and obviously that is something you really, really want to avoid. So if there is any threat of that, you need to not confront it, but you need to deal with it. Don't park it. And obviously, if you can get medical evidence to confirm your child is unable to school, that's brilliant. But I know the realities of trying to get a doctor's GPs. They're not versed very well, in most of them, in children's mental health, and then trying to get an appointment from CAMS. Well, you may be waiting a year or so, if not longer. So that, as everyone knows watching this, your child best. And the problem is trying to get people to understand what is happening to your child, and why your child isn't attending school is the hard part. But as I say, if there's any threat of prosecution, do not ignore it. Do deal with it. And again, you can
Square
either
one.